Here we are, part 3 of Skunkworks, and yeah, I'm kind of drawing this one out, only because I'm working on it in spare time and stuff. So we're gonna try and get some things done here today. We'll get storage in there. I'll show you some of the parts that we got, other storages and stuff. Blocks, we'll get our block installed on our graphics card, and it'll start to look like a computer. The all-new Z20 mechanical gaming keyboard from EVGA features optical mechanical switches available in clicky or linear versions, TOF sensor, 4 kHz report rate, and media controls, making it a great choice for multi-purpose setups. To learn more and to see the full list of features of the new Z20 from EVGA, click the link in the description below. All right, so I told you guys last time that there was an order I had to make, obviously, so I could have the parts I needed to finish this. So I reached out to our good buddies over at Performance PCs, who have sponsored just like every custom build I've pretty much done in terms of the odds and ends that I've needed. So here's what I got from them this time. I got a bunch of brand new sticks of hard tubing because I didn't have a lot of 13 mil. It seems like I said in the last video, a lot of people have switched over to 14 millimeter as being the main size. We also have our EK Quantum vector block and backplate for our graphics card, which there is a switch. I was going to use my For the Win 3 from EVGA. However, Performance PCs was all out of that particular block. And so I had reached out to EK. Unfortunately, they sent us the wrong block setup. They sent us a block for a reference or founder's card, which is not what I'm using. So I'm switching over to my 3090 Gaming X Trio from MSI because they had those blocks in stock. At the end of the day, dude, you can tell we haven't used this much. But anyway, at the end of the day, it's all sort of the same, 3090s or 3090s. I got a drain valve. That's actually not the valve I got. This to use. This is the valve I'm gonna use. This is the, of course, Thayer one, which is basically identical. The difference is the Bits Power one I can get with the swivel adapter already on there. For whatever reason, Corsair, at least not that I've seen, has that. Now Bits Power sells it as well without that on there, but it's falling out of my hand. As you can see, they are essentially the exact same valve. So I'm pretty sure Bits Power might be the OEM for Corsair, which is fine because they're probably the highest quality fittings that you can get. But this one, like I said, has the swivel fitting. So just do it like that. And then when I'm not using it, I can push it down and out of the way. I just need to make sure this isn't gonna interfere with the graphics card. Because if so, then guess what I'll be doing? I'll be taking that off and rotating it again, which will suck. But drains are important to have because they just make life easier. So I'm gonna put this one back in the bag before it gets all scratched up before I even use it. Here's the other thing we got. I got the fluid. This will reveal the color that I have finally chosen to go with. So I guess we should do an unveiling now, huh?
Unveiling?
An unveiling. That does not look very mixed up though, huh? It's not very bright. Maybe I won't use that one after all.
What's unveiling?
It's kind of not bright. I thought that was gonna be a brighter color. Primo Chill, what are you guys doing over there, man?
That's the yellow?
Yeah.
It looks orange to me.
It does look kind of like a Tang. Wow, so are they both? Yeah, it's got like an orange juice. Damn! That is incredibly disappointing. That looks like the color my system turned when I had problems with yellow in the past. That's not gonna fly. I'm not gonna use this. Damn it! I wanted yellow, not orange juice. This is not gonna. It needs to be brighter. Like this is the yellow I was kind of going for in there because that reminds me of the old Skunkworks. Dang it, son of a. So I've got XL5 clear from Corsair. I think I might just use that again and mix up my own color. I'm glad I didn't order the cables yet because the fact that I didn't order the cables means I can make a color change now. Because so far nothing in here is colored. The other color I'm really inclined to use is green. Because green was my other favorite color scheme. You know why I like green? Because especially if it's UV green, it reminds me of the way, like all the fluid you got back when water cooling started to become mainstream through like Fluid XP, anybody remember that brand? Was like neon green. Like it looked like engine coolant. Well, we'll put the fluid on hold for now. We'll go ahead and move into getting the graphics card block on, because until I have the card in there and I see where all my clearances are, I can't start running tubes. I'd like to figure out if I'm going to use this distribution block or not. All right, so I like to put down mouse pad or something when I'm working on graphics cards to take off the coolers. Also too, another good practice is that when you take the screws off, keep in mind on whether or not there are some that are shorter or longer than others. And then I like to screw them back into the cooler itself or put them in a Ziploc baggie and tape them to the cooler. That way when you go to put it back, you have your screws. The screws are not really universal. Like, these are very different than the ones I've seen on other graphics cards. So you can't take a screw from another graphics card and use it, usually. You could damage it. So I'm putting the pads back in the spots they go as well. That way you can keep tabs of your thermal pads and stuff. Thermal pads are the thing that you might end up ruining when you take it off your card or your backplate or your card or whatever. So I like to take these little spudger sticks, which we come with our iFixit kits. You can just get up under there and then just sort of like lift it. There you go. Then you're not dealing with tearing your pads, because if you try and just pull your pad up, you're gonna tear it. Now we gotta get to the business end. First one I like to stab is the little bogus void if removed sticker. You know what's void? Your voiding of voiding. Wait, your voiding of warranty is void due to right to repair. Remember, those stickers are BS. They can't void your warranty just because they threw a sticker on something. Stand up for your right to repair, guys. So check out how much this board is gonna flex. There we go. So that was all just being held on by the thermal pads. Don't just pull the cooler away, because there are other wires that you can't see. There's our PCB, here's our cooler. So what I'm gonna do before I move forward now is I am going to do the same thing I did for the backside. So now we got a naked MSI Gaming X Trio. So we gotta clean all this stuff off, right? We got stuff sitting here on the RAM. Okay. If you are gonna use paper towel like this, and you make sure you get any residue off. See how those chips turned white and those didn't? I'm not sure what kind of a chemical reaction that had, but it happens. It's not hurting anything. Could be a slightly different material on the outside of these chips. There we go. It's our big mama right there. Woo! So I'll show you a little trick that I use to know how to cut this properly. If you're using EK, the darker blue is the softer side. The lighter blue has a thicker, like kind of a plastic backing, as you can see. It's real thick. So what I do is I take the softer side, line it up with where I need it to go. We'll do the RAM first. Push it down, and it will leave an imprint. It's kind of difficult to see, but it'll leave an imprint that you can see where to cut it. So I'll take that imprint and then just be like, boop. And now you can see we got the perfect size for that. So I sort of do that all around. And then I pick off the clear plastic part, stick it down. And if you cleaned properly, all the grease and stuff that's left behind, it'll stick. If you find it's not sticking, it's coming up, that means you've still got a lot of thermal pad grease from the previous thermal pads on the chips, which won't let it lift up. I'll leave the backing on until I'm ready to peel them all off, and I use a dental pick for that, which is a lot easier than using your fingernail and starting to tear it. So I'll just go ahead and work my way around. The same thing here, obviously, for the MOSFET, so you can take a longer one, and we'll do the chokes here. These will actually leave a better imprint because they're sharper edges. So if you look on there now, you can see every single one left an indent on there. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna cut it straight across like that. And then I'm also gonna cut the width of it because it is too wide for that spot. So this is now perfect for the MOSFETs right here. And I do have it coming all the way down to this one. This is the same height. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave that on there. I know this might seem really boring, but it's funny, over the years, people have said they love this sort of content because it's educational. Like, even if you're not planning on doing it yourself, people still like to watch it. All right, so I got all the thermal pads on there. I also have my thermal paste spread. I don't use the thermal paste that comes with it. I like to use the Kingpin KPX, which is amazing thermal paste for any temperature range. Also, it's blue like the rest of the stuff. So I like to pre-spread it with a spreader. I just know then every inch or square millimeter of the die is covered, because if you have a hot spot on the die, that will slow down your GPU as well. Doing the X on there is fine. I mean, it's such a precise fit that usually it will spread perfectly, but by pre-spreading it like that, you guarantee to get the best coverage. So the other thing I like to do here is use the box as a little table to be able to put my GPU on like this. Because you've got this overhang here, if it's flat on the table, you can't get it to line up. So I also will take this opportunity to make sure that all my cables are out of the way. You don't want it like that or something to get pinched. That's bad. What'll happen is it won't make contact with the die, because that will be lifting it up. Or you could just short that out against the block and then create another problem for your RGB controller. Also too, this will always go on the opposite end as your PCI Express slot right there. So it's going to go like that. When I put this down, I'm going to line up these 4 holes that are around the GPU block, and we will start tightening from there outward. But before I do that, obviously, because I don't want it sliding around, I'm gonna go ahead and take out my screws. This is what I was saying, like they literally just take a handful of crap and throw it in here. These little plastic standoffs, I've seen people make mistakes and go, I put a water block on my card and it's overheating now, I don't understand why. This goes on the back. This is designed to protect the screw and the back of the PCB. If you put these between the standoff and the face of the GPU, you created almost an inch gap that shouldn't be there. So then you're not making good.
Inch?
That's an inch? Wow, millimeter. Yeah, a whole inch gap. So you'll create about a millimeter gap between everything, and including your core. And then you're not gonna get any cooling benefit of that. So keep that in mind. They are for the back. The reason why I keep telling you they throw all these screws in here unnecessarily is because don't think that you should not have leftovers, because there's way more than you need. So here we go. Let's go ahead and get this guy back here. Make sure that's all free. Perfect. All right. So I'm gonna put the 4 screws around the core first, because I have a backplate to put on here, which is technically a separate item than the block itself. So these 4 I know will end up underneath the block, and I think this screw might be too long. Yes, it is. Because I know it goes under the backplate, I know I can safely put these 4 on without having to remove them. Cool. I'm also not bothering to use the little plastic piece on here, because I know it has the orange pieces, they're little ground isolators. That way you're not gonna end up with like an NZXT type situation on your hands here. I also leave them on there loosely, because you might get all 4 of these to line up, but it could still be slightly crooked, which means it won't line up on the extremities. So this corner doesn't line up. Now it does. I'm gonna put a temporary screw in there to keep it nice and square, which means now I can put in the other 2 screws over here and we'll be good to go. This is scary for a lot of people, because this, especially in right now, in this current GPU climate, this is the most expensive computer component in your system, and to go taking it apart scares a lot of people. So I'm now going to tighten until it's snug. Don't use a lot of force for a couple reasons. 1, you don't want to strip the screw out. 2, you don't want to slip and be like, and scrape stuff off of the substrate or the PCB. You got all these SMDs and stuff that are surface mounted, which is why they're SM. Anyway, moving on. You don't want to scrape those off. Remember, I did do a video where I accidentally broke one off with pliers when I was doing LN2 stuff. And you're gonna just go until it starts to use a decent amount of force, and then stop, and then work your way around again in a star pattern. So now we've got the backplate to put on here, which has thermal pads as well, because again, we've got memory chips on the back, we've got backside of MOSFETs, which I bet you anything we're gonna cool. The other reason why I do this is I can see quickly and easily which screws I can go ahead and mount down and which ones are pass-throughs that go through the backplate into the card. The nice thing too is they give you these nice machine screws, because they know this part's visible. Yeah, we get these nice pretty machine screws. And then you got some black ones. The black ones are gonna be for the screws that you can't see. The machine screws are gonna be for the screws that you can see. Let's do that. Let's get these pads on there, and then we'll get these pads on there. So there's our MSI Gaming X Trio with our block on there. You can see I chose the vector block to match our velocity block there. So, oh my God, it barely fits in there. I mean, it looks cool like that, but I still think vertical would look cooler. So one of the things you have to do too, if you're gonna start figuring out clearances for your build, is you have to get your fans and everything mounted up. I'm going with the new Uni AL120 fans that we showed you guys. But yeah, you have to get your fans on there to figure out what the clearances are gonna be, because if the fans have to hang down on the bottom side of this rad, then I can't just do a 90 off with the tube, because then it might interfere with the fan. I've got to mount these guys down. The cool thing is I only really have to do the corners, because I mean, they're snapped together, right? Trying to get them to all line up like this is, haha, there we go. Once you get one going, you're usually good to go after that. The other thing that's gonna sort of suck for like the OCD people is the fact that it's offset. If you look at it straight on, you see the fans are not centered. I mean, I suppose I could move it over one. Because I want the return from the block, if I go straight to this rad, to come to the front side so it's easier to access. And I get this 90-degree bend perfect, so it fits right between the radiator and the MOSFET cooler here, and then comes up in the back. That might look really good. And then the fans from the front won't be offset, because I don't know about you guys, but I think that'll bug me. All right, so that's obviously better. Nice and pleasing for the OCD. You know what else I could do for no reason other than because? Have a 90-degree tube. Now we're talking about Skunkworks like type stuff. A 90-degree tube that comes out of here and goes straight down into this through a pass-through, but then comes right back up here and then into the GPU. And it just goes under and goes back up. There's no point to it other than to do it. There's plenty of room here if I get rid of that drive tray and even still have my... I was gonna use the 1600 watt power supply, but I'm just probably not gonna, just because of the length of it. All right, so this is the next day. I did end the day somewhat frustrated yesterday, and I'm even more frustrated today. So let's talk about why. I explained all the things that had to take place to, I have to have the GPU in and know where I'm gonna put it. We do have the vertical adapter bracket and the riser cable coming, so I can determine once and for all if I want it to be vertical or not. So I wanted to start doing the tubing up top, because that's not gonna really change. So you can see I put this little 90 in here. This is that scrap piece that Nick gave me yesterday, so I just cut it into size. You can see now how much more rigid the reservoir is on there. I want to make sure this fitting in the back wasn't going to get interfered with that coming off at a 40, and it does, so I can come straight down back here and across and up and over to there like I want. So I was going to go ahead and do that. The other thing too is I started playing around with this piece of ABS plastic that I have to see if I want to make a block off plate here. I don't know if I'm going to yet, still. I'm not sure I like how that looks. But it also allowed me to kind of do some testing here to see if I would be able to even get, will that fit through there? No, but 12 mil probably would. Anyway, to see if I even had enough room to do a pass through here to come up, like I said, with one of these bulkhead fittings right there. So I could have it come up and over into here, have the pump go straight down into there and a little connecting piece underneath. I might still do that, haven't decided. But here's the thing. I showed you guys, I wanted to reuse these fittings. These are the 13 millimeter outer diameter Primo Chill fittings that were part of the original set that were sent to me for Skunkworks the first time I used hardline tubing in Skunkworks. So I started bending tubing and stuff, and I used the 13 by 10 tubing that I have from Primo Chill to do some of this testing here, like you can see, because I showed you I had brand new tubes sent to me by Performance PCs with AlphaCool. However, we discovered something here rather quickly. With the fittings I wanted to use, they do say 10 by 13. So I bent to 90 and started to fit it up in there. And then I realized it won't fit in the Primo Chill fitting. So if you look in this fitting real quick, you can see that there's like a chamfered slope that pushes down into a recessed part of the fitting. That is where the tube rests. And I'll show you with this guy. This is a Primo Chill tube that pushes in there like that. And then if you have the O-ring on it and the clamp collar, it squishes the O-ring and it puts pressure against the tube and then it seals. This guy, it doesn't fit because it actually measures 13.1 millimeters, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's important to keep in mind 13 millimeter is just an approximation. This tube right here, which is probably 5 years old, you can see it, there's a fitting on it right there. Actually, it's the exact same fitting this is. It slides in there just fine. So you can also see the collar slides over that tube just fine because it's matched. The collar doesn't even fit over this tube. So I have a choice to make. I have no fittings that will work with this tube because almost everything as I showed you already is 14 millimeter these days. I don't have any 14 millimeter. I don't think I have any 14 millimeter fittings. I have 12 millimeter. I know that for a fact. I have 16 in chrome or nickel, but I don't have any 13s. And I wanted to use these because they were nostalgic because of them being so old. I've had them for so long. So I do have this box of rigid PETG tubing from Primo Chill. The problem is it's been moved around so much and handled and jostled. There's lots of just tiny scratches all over it. It's just not. PETG is so soft, it's easy to scratch. So I wanted to end this video by bending this tube right here in the back part above the motherboard, because I know that's not gonna change, that's how I wanna do it. But I can't even do that for you today, which makes me feel like this video is stupid and you guys are gonna hate it because it's just not a whole lot of substance other than seeing me put a water block on, talk about some stuff. You saw me mount some fans. You can see the build coming together, but I don't want this to be a million parts. I want it to really just kind of get wrapped up. And this is the third video, so clearly there's gonna be 4 of them, which sort of stinks. But I mean, that's just the way this goes sometimes. These build, I almost said build blogs. These build vlogs at least show you things to consider when you're doing these types of builds. Because anyone that's built a system to any sort of caliber like this with the custom parts and water blocks and fittings and tubing and all that stuff, it almost never goes according to plan 100%. You end up having to reorder something, or something doesn't fit, or there was a defect or something that just ends up making life suck. So I have to decide now. Am I gonna go with 14 millimeter tubing? Am I gonna go with 12? Because I have 12 millimeter tubes and I have 12 millimeter fittings. My problem with 12 millimeter is, although the inner diameter is 10 millimeter still, so the flow rate is the same, it's a half millimeter thinner on the wall diameter, or thickness, I should say. So when you bend it, it stretches more and thins out some in the bends. So if you try and do tight bends, it can start to really look funky if you're not careful with it. They have 16 millimeter tubing, but that's really difficult to bend because of how thick and how big it is. And so I don't feel like I would have enough room in here to do that the way I want. So that's where this video is gonna end. The mess continues to expand, but the system not so much. I will do my best in the next video to get this thing pretty damn near done so that we can just move on to something else. Maybe go back to the simulator rig that we started forever ago. You guys have been asking about. I'm not too convinced I like the way that foam block is aesthetically. It serves its purpose to allow people to arrange engine bays and stuff, but in terms of being a final build piece for a computer, I'm not convinced. So I've got some thinking to do on that one. I might just scrap the whole engine block idea, or maybe I just source myself a tiny aluminum 4-cylinder block or something, screw around with and make a build out of. All these builds, not enough time. Anyway, it's a tough life, but someone's got to live it. Thanks for watching, guys. Dislike this video because I know you're gonna. I'll see you guys in the next one. Let's check your spaghetti, bro.
Spaghetti on the spaghetti already.
Now you know how muffler silencers work.
It's when you switch to the car.
Yeah.
To track and
Oh, yeah.